In this video, we're going to show you to install the upper ball joint on your Jeep Grand Cherokee located in your upper control arm. All right, let's go ahead and use a 22mm socket to go ahead and loosen and remove these lug nuts. Once you have the lug nuts removed, grab the wheel, remove it, and set it aside. Now with your vehicle supported on jack stands, we're going to go ahead and put your jack underneath the control arm. And what we're going to do is we're going to raise this up, and we're going to leave about an inch of space between the jack itself and the lower ball joint knuckle area. I want to go ahead and loosen this upper ball joint nut. Now this is a 21mm, and when we go to loosen this here, we're just going to bring it down to the point where it's only held on by a few threads. We're going to use our 21mm socket and our swivel and our extension here, and we'll go ahead and loosen this. Now it's okay if we remove that completely. We'll just thread that back on just a few threads. Now at this point, we're going to go ahead and use our hammer, and we're going to strike the top portion of the knuckle here. Now this ball joint should separate from the knuckle. That's why we have the jack underneath the lower control arm. And we left about an inch of space or so underneath so that when this separates, the knuckle and everything will only drop about an inch, but we want to have that space for it to drop so we can see that these two have separated. Let's go ahead and use our hammer, and we're going to strike the knuckle right here. We can now see that the ball joint has separated. Now we can go ahead and remove this nut the rest of the way. Now when we remove this here, you also want to be careful that this whole knuckle will have a tendency to swing out. So right now, before you pop this out, it's probably a safe bet to go ahead, grab some securing straps to hold this back, and we're going to secure that to the frame of the vehicle itself. In order to remove this ball joint here from the control arm, we're going to use our ball joint press right here. And we need to press this up and out of the upper control arm. So set up your cups, use your tool to go ahead and work this up and out. All right, once we have that ball joint released from that control arm, we can go ahead and remove our tool. I'll go ahead and remove our ball joint. Now in the upper control arm, you want to go ahead and inspect the inside of the control arm where the ball joint just came out. Now if you have some surface rust in there, go ahead and just use some 400 grit sandpaper. You want to go ahead and clean this up. Make sure that there's no debris or burrs in there. Let's go ahead and take that down to the metal so it's nice and shiny, but you don't want to remove metal, so don't use power tools. We're just going to clean this up. Same thing for the top side. Make sure that that is clear of any burrs or rust. Get that prepared for our new one to get pressed in. Now when installing the new ball joint, you want to pay attention to the sides here or the top. There's two flat sides, and these need to be positioned so that the flat sides are facing front and rear. If you twist this and put it in the wrong way, you're going to have an issue with the ball joint itself operating properly. So when installing this here, drop this down inside. Make sure that it is facing front and back. And then go ahead and install your ball joint press. Go ahead and get this installed. You want to make sure that your ball joint is being pressed in evenly all the way around. Make sure that is bottomed out, so make sure it's nice and tight. Inspect it. Looks like our ball joint is pretty much seated completely. Let's go ahead and remove the tool. Our ball joint is fully seated. Now that we have our ball joint in place, let's go ahead and swing that knuckle up and around. And this is where having that jack underneath is going to help. We can go ahead and raise this up. Get that caught a couple threads. We're going to go ahead and get our socket on there. We can torque the nut to 70 foot-pounds. Now, once we have the nut torqued into position, you want to pay attention to where the hole is on the ball joint stud. Now, if we come around to the side here, there's a hole, or you can actually see a portion of the hole on this side here. Now, we're going to go ahead and continue to tighten this nut a little bit until that hole is totally visible through this notch here. You never want to loosen this nut to the point where you want to line up that hole. Make sure that you tighten it until that hole is visible for that cotter pin to go into. We can go just a hair bit more. You want to make sure that that cotter pin fits in there nice and easy. Perfect. Once we have our cotter pin in place, go ahead and we're going to bend our tab down. And then we'll snip off the excess. We're going to remove our securing strap. Go ahead and set that aside. Now, in this particular ball joint, it does have a greasable fitting on it. If yours has the greasable fitting, you want to go ahead and pop that cap, and you're going to take what we call the Zerk fitting. This is the greasable port. And line that up, and you want to start to thread it in by hand. Do not cross thread this. So you want to make sure that starts to go in. Uses a 3/8 inch wrench to tighten this down. And we're basically just going to tighten this until the nut is bottomed out on the top of the ball joint. Ideally, you want to go ahead and make sure that that Zerk fitting is facing outward so we can install our grease gun. And then you want to use your grease gun, adapt it here, and fill up the ball joint. And normally when you're greasing a ball joint, I like to give it a good 6 or 7 pumps of the grease gun to go ahead and put grease inside there. And what you want to try and prevent from doing is having a bunch of grease come bursting out of the boot here. So 6 or 7 pumps of that grease. You can feel that there's some there. A little bit of grease is just coming out, which is plenty sufficient. Make sure you wipe off the top of the Zerk fitting itself. Good, and remove the jack from under the knuckle. Go ahead and remove that. Good, and install your wheel. Get our lug nuts all started by hand first. Once we have all these on, we'll go ahead and snug them down. Now we want to go ahead and torque down our lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds. And we're all set.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.